Okay, in the interest of speeding play up in the videos in terms of what you're actually watching, I just got us started on Jan-Feb 1941. So all the force pools have been updated. The Axis has initiative, but they had to give up a die roll bonus for it. So now the Allies can ask for a re-roll in the future and have a +1 to their die roll. So probably not the turn to have done it necessarily, but I did it for a couple of reasons. One, to ensure that the Axis can control Algeria, which they will, and to make sure we get the Italian fleet out in the Western Med first and in good position so that the Allies have fewer options. Now, that could come back to haunt the Axis, but we'll see. So the Italians took a naval, and so they used their naval units to move about over here, dropping off some units, and I realized that I screwed something up a little bit. There we go. Some naval units, naval transports, their air units doing some air activities, just moving guys, over. And the Germans took a land so that their armor could clear through Algiers, continue along the coast. They could continue maneuvering some units into place for Spain, and then getting situated in the north up there, kind of poised for some sea lion activities, which we probably want to start just as soon as the weather allows. Now, I rolled pretty low for weather. It is storming in the Arctic, rain in the North Temperate. It's like, are we even going to have any snow in Europe this year? I don't know. But this has allowed the Axis plenty of opportunities to move around. As soon as the weather goes bad, the Axis will probably start doing more navals, and we'll probably see some efforts to do submarine warfare, because the Germans have 4 subunits ready to rock and roll, and they're really going to be trying hard to disrupt the Commonwealth. So the pressure against the Commonwealth is going to start to be underway as we get going here. But the Commonwealth still has a pretty strong fleet at Gibraltar, now including the Free French fleet, which will be able to operate well enough that the Italians actually are under a bit of threat right now, just because there's enough total Allied ships together to pose quite a threat. So this could be the Allies' opportunity to disrupt the Italians. So the Axis went, the impulse marker moves up 2 boxes, and we go to the Allies with the same weather. So I just want to give you updates. We got through the lending. Nothing's really changed for the lending. Not that you guys really care that much about it. Everything else is kind of on track. Knowing that it's still winter months, we could have some snow in March, April. The Axis doesn't want to start hostilities with the Spanish yet, I don't think. I think they want as clear weather and good clearance for weather as possible, but we'll have to see just where we get to here. Okay, so, and by the way, the Commonwealth are still trapped down here, but they're soaking up a lot of Italian units, so it's sort of, we'll take that as it is. But okay, so we'll do the Allies. I'll take care of their action, but we will very likely be trying to. The French are probably, well, I don't know. I guess they can take a combined or a naval or something. Commonwealth maybe needs to take a naval. It's just going to depend. I'm not really sure how we're going to play this out yet. But when I come back, you'll see the results of the Allied impulse. Okay, so interesting set of bits occurred, and it was a significant naval battle, and I just played it out instead of recording it. It's kind of interesting the way it went. So, but it's so interesting to see the Ally advantage in air having such a factor here. So the Commonwealth sub failed to find the Italians in the Italian coast, so nothing there. And here, they rolled a search, and they rolled poor. They rolled a 9, the Italians rolled a 2. So even with all those surprise points, there were 8 surprise points for the Italians, basically, again. only this time, you know, it wasn't so bad for the Allies because the Italians had to spend 4 to make it a surface combat, so they didn't get chewed up by the air. And even because you know, essentially the Italians kind of had surface advantage, but they had to spend the rest of their points suppressing the Allied firepower. The Allies still managed to damage the Guasano, and the Italians managed to sink a rinky-dink French cruiser and forced another to the repair pool and sent the others packing. So all the French got knocked out, and the Allies decided to have all the losses occur to the French ships rather than the Commonwealth ships, because the Commonwealth ships are trying to retain their carriers. Now, what they're left with is the Revenge and 3 aircraft carriers in the Western Med. And when it came time to decide, like, okay, are they sticking around or what, I rolled again, and both sides failed to find each other. So for now, the Commonwealth's being risky, but what they're doing is they're maintaining, they're keeping the Italians from having too much advantage at play and are threatening them very much. So if they can get a good roll, the Commonwealth can actually, you know, get the jump on the Italians, and their air advantage could wreak havoc here and really shut down the Italian force. Now, a lot of their carriers are kind of down here, but what we'll hope to be able to do is have, they're going to get another carrier next turn for up north as reinforcements. So the Commonwealth's doing great. I mean, their aircraft carrier advantage just is pretty strong here. It's going to be tough to hurt them and otherwise have the Axis stuff get whittled away. So yeah, that's it for the Allies. You know, combined in a naval, basically. It did rail the Senegalese unit into Oran, and so of course, now that I'm thinking about it, they're out of supply. So maybe I shouldn't have done that. Oh, golly gee. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a bad situation. Guess maybe we rail to Fez and try to get this guy home. Or no, they would be in supply because of the Allied ships. What am I doing? That's the other reason we didn't want to retreat out of the sea zone. So things lucked out there. Anyway, yeah. So we got that, and now it's back to the Axis. And I think at this point, the Italians are probably going to do a land, and the Germans are going to maybe do a naval. But we'll see what happens. Okay, Axis action complete. You know, it's funny. I did a naval action as the Germans, but it wasn't like there was a whole lot that they did. I did move. I have 3 German subs, not 4. I realized I did move them to Brest. So rather than send them out to actually patrol, I'm setting them up to do so next turn. So that the Commonwealth now has a larger threat space to deal with, because from Brest they can reach a lot farther close to the east coast, which will prove more of a challenge. The North African guys are continuing to move forward, but I will say it's a bit slow going. They're probably not going to get too much farther this turn. It just depends on what the Axis decides to do. I mean, the Mediterranean is still open actions because of the way the weather works. But down here, it took, you know, I threw all the air that I could, and I managed to flip one of the units that the Commonwealth had, and I decided to chance an attack. It was pretty risky because it was only 3 to 2 odds, but with the flipped unit, I had a +1. I rolled an 8, I got a 9, and so all the Italian units down there are flipped, but we did destroy the Commonwealth unit. So the Allies are effectively out of the southeast part of the map, totally. And now I can worry about trying to bring those guys home, but it's going to take a while. So you know, it's not a huge deal. I might have to leave a unit behind for garrison's sake, but I will try to get the rest of these dudes somewhere as it can be done. So there you go. A lot of effort to get Egypt and close the Suez Canal, but we have done it, and so we're doing what we can there. We'll send those guys as far west as I can reasonably try to. And yeah, everything else is peachy keen. I did move a German transport over here, and it snuck past a Commonwealth nav bomber and managed to get into a port in the Netherlands. This was kind of silly to do, but I felt like it might as well take some risks as the Axis. Maybe that'll balance against my really risky play with the Allies. To get with a unit that next turn will be able to be transported out the way. And I'm sorry, not a. I meant to do it as a amphib, not a transport. My bad. I'll fix that here. There you go. Just to help set up for the eventual Sea Lion action that will take place at some point. So yeah, there you go. And we're going to flip it back to the Allies. The Allies want to do something. They need to try to disrupt what is happening out there. They're hurting is the real big problem. So I think the Commonwealth will do a combined, the French will do nothing because there's really nothing for them to do. Well, the Allies are having terrible luck. We had a roll of a 1 for the Italians and a 6 for the Commonwealth here, which managed to sink the Glorious carrier and force the other carriers to abort, and the Revenge aborted with them out of the sea zone. So just enough surprise points to make it a surface combat. The Italians chose the 4-box, which meant that the gunnery firepower. This is just a whole bad situation, but I think I'm forcing myself to kind of learn the nuances of how to cover naval units better. I'm better at land stuff. But the Glorious is out. It's one of the older aircraft carriers, so the Commonwealth's probably not going to worry about rebuilding it. They've got better stuff they could probably end up building. It's just it takes a year to build, so there you go. The Formidable is an aircraft carrier in the construction pool, so the Commonwealth may want to get that guy going here. So yeah, Commonwealth, French, not great. The Soviet Union really doesn't have a whole lot to do right now. I mean, their situation, there's kind of bad weather. There's not as much to really cover. They're moving some things around strategically, but that's about it. So the Allies could end it on a 1, and we'll see if it does. They don't, but it goes to the Axis, and we'll roll for weather. And very similar weather. Oh, actually, it's worse. So now we're looking at snow in places. Snow in the Arctic. Snow in North Temperate. Rain in the Med, which is interesting. And then rain in the South Monsoon. So yeah, we are finally getting some snow now, which will slow things down a little bit. We kind of understood this is where things were at. I don't know that the Axis has anything they really want to do. They have a lot of stuff that's flipped. They could try to move some guys, I guess. And that's about as much as they could try to do. Yeah, we could move a little bit. Basically, is as much as we can afford to do. But it is awfully quiet. Yep, just a little bit of slight movements here and there, but nothing too crazy. They don't want to do anything more from a naval standpoint yet. But boy shucks, the Commonwealth Navy, I mean, there's just not as much to worry about now. We've just been beating on them, chipping away at them. Okay, they'll roll to see if they end it. They don't. It advances 2 for the Allies. I think the Allies are just interested in there's not much they can do. I'll say that. There's not much that they can do. And in fact, the Axis have an opportunity to try to take Iran shortly. So we'll have to see how that goes. So right now, I don't think the Axis want to do a whole lot, but gosh, I don't know. Could use some rebasing. And maybe that's it, I think. Yeah. Okay, I think I feel like they probably want at least one more impulse, but they're probably not going to get it. It's rolling to end it, and they don't end it. Amazingly. And interesting stuff here. Okay, sorry, I almost screwed up the impulse tracks. I was moving too fast for myself. So we ended up coming to the Allies. The Allies didn't have much to do, so we just let the die roll come up. And the only other thing, I guess, that we could have done but didn't was invade the Baltics of the Soviet Union. I think we want to let the Americans get a U.S. entry chit up first before that happens. So, especially with the 41 chits in. So that's the end of the turn for Jan-Feb 41. We'll get into the end turn stuff here just shortly. Okay, so there was no partisans getting into U.S. entry. The USSR drew their chits. The Germans drew their chits, and I think at some juncture here, we're going to have to figure out the garrison situation with the USSR, but I don't think it matters quite yet. For the U.S. entry, the U.S. drew a 1 chit out of the 1940 allotment. So even with the 41 chits in the cup, they drew crap. And so, fortunately, we still have enough to take an action. And I think we want to take U.S. entry 16, which is Gift of Destroyers to the Commonwealth. So the next 10 surface ships, the Commonwealth starts, completes, or repairs, while the USA is neutral, costs 1 less build point. So we're going to do that, I guess, and try to give... It's like free build points for the Commonwealth. I just need to mark that I'm doing it. And I'll have to keep track on some paper that counts. So it's 10 SCS, starts, completes, or repairs. So it's basically a step. Each cycle is one of those 10. So altogether it could be five surface ships or 1 cheaper per build cost part, whatever, however you want to look at it. We'll worry about that in the production phase. The Commonwealth certainly has an incentive to use it because their Navy's hurting so bad right now that, they might pour a bunch of points into that. But if this was a typical game, that might make sense, but this is not a typical game. This is an atypical game with Sea Lion brewing, and the Commonwealth has a more incentive to prepare for that. So, I don't know. How do you want to think about it? You want to spend more build points on defending the island on the ground, or do you want to spend more points trying to build walls in the sea with your Navy, but it's going to take time for the Navy to be built, right? So this is a tough call. But it's really the only U.S. entry option that the U.S. can really take that matters. We're going to roll a die to see if we have a tension. We do. So one of these gets transferred to the tension pool, which is a 1. So right now we're back down to 4, 6, 7, 14 U.S. entry, which seems low. guess, but the tension pool is up to 4, 6, 8. And if you go with the doubling rule that I think we're supposed to, it's actually 16. So could the U.S. try to enter the war? Our U.S. entry is too low. Our tension is doing okay. But we need our U.S. entry to be higher. Now, it won't matter come the end of this game turn year, because the Japanese will declare war on the U.S., and then we'll start handling that whole gameplay mechanic. But as it is right now, the transfer pool is cleaned out, and so the Commonwealth's going to be hurting there. Okay, well, I'm going to take care of return to base, final reorg, and production, and we'll come back to close out the turn and video. Okay, looking at production, and you can kind of see ahead for March, April. There's not a huge amount of reinforcements that are coming in. It just happens to be the way things are built out. So what's the Commonwealth doing? Well, the Commonwealth is making use of the cheaper destroyers, but they're still building a motorized infantry, just so there's some additional support there. But they're going to start building a couple of surface ships, and then they're going to finish building a few surface ships, and then they're going to, I believe there's a repair in here somewhere, yeah. They're going to repair a surface ship. So a lot of building. We're using 6 of the 10 cheaper destroyer purchases, and we'll have 4 more to use. So I'm just going to get some of these guys out here. Oof, some of these are big battleships we're not going to see for a while, but yeah, that's what you got to do sometimes. Okay, and then so Union is spending all of its points to build 2 mechs and an armor. They're going big style, mostly because they can. But it is to help have some oomph out there. The U.S. is building an Essex class carrier. Let's see. It's called the Essex. So that's going to help out quite a bit, I hope, over time. And they're also going to be building some more transport, so we'll see how well that all works out. Again, they're limited on amps, which is one problem. The Italians are building an infantry, and then they're repairing 2 ships. So wanting to make sure that they have a chance to recover their own navy a little bit, so that's going to take some time, and rebuild the infantry they lost in Egypt. And then the Germans are not messing around either. They managed to pull a 41 mech, which is quite strong. It's a white print 9 factor mech unit that will be coming in 3 turns. 1, 2, 3. And then they just got right on top of the air stuff. So they are building a 41 Stuka. That is quite strong. That is a 6 ground strike factor. It's kind of hard to see because of the focus, but it is very strong. And then 3 41 fighters. All 3 in the force pool. Now, one of them is Hungarian, but the others are top-notch German fighters. So that is going to be a big help for the Germans when they come up. And the Hungarians too, I guess, but less significant. And then, yeah, that's the end of this turn. We're going to go into March, April 41. The reinforcements of note, which we could talk about in the next video, but probably won't. Germans get another air transport. Commonwealth gets a few ships back. They get the Indomitable carrier, which helps because they had lost a carrier. Some mech, and then the Soviets get a few things. So nothing too crazy. But March, April is kind of where the Axis can decide, are they going to go into Spain? They're kind of all prepped, and I waited because the weather hadn't been great, and I might have waited too long, honestly, but I don't know. This is an exploratory game. I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, I think that's it. So we'll catch you guys in the next video. We'll look at March, April 1941. So see ya.